Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, I want to start with a little mental image. I want you to picture a classic fantasy scenario. You know the type. You're Sir Galahad. You're standing in a dark forest, night is falling, the fog is rolling in, and in front of you, the road splits into three paths. One is paved with gold, one with marble, and one with stone.
The classic hero's choice. Usually this is the part where a dragon jumps out or maybe, a goblin asks you for a toll.
Exactly. And standing in front of each path is a knight in armor. But in this version of the story, the knights don't want to fight you. They aren't reaching for their swords. They want to give you a math problem.
And not just any math problem. This is a riddle involving probability statistics, logical negation, and Bayesian inference.
Yeah.
It's like the SATs, but if you get it wrong, you don't get into college, you get, eaten by a wolf or something.
Right. So here's the experiment we're looking at today. We aren't just trying to solve this riddle ourselves. We're looking at a fascinating case study where this exact scenario, the riddle of the three knights, was fed to two of the most advanced AI models on the planet, Deepseek and Google Gemini.
It's a perfect stress test. You take two superintelligences, give them the exact same inputs, same knights, same rules, same riddle, and see if they agree on reality. You'd expect them to find the same answer, right? I mean, math is math. Logic is logic.
That's what I would have thought. But, and here's the twist that makes this so cool, they came to completely opposite conclusions.
Complete different realities.
Deepseek swears, hand on heart, that the Holy Grail is down the gold road. Gemini is convinced, absolutely convinced, it's down the stone road. So today we're going to unpack this standoff. We're going to look at the brain of each AI to see how they process information. Because what this really reveals isn't just the answer to a riddle, it reveals a fundamental split in how artificial intelligence prioritizes math versus logic.
It's the ultimate showdown between the quantitative analyst and the logical strategist. And honestly, it tells us a lot about how these models think, if we can even use that word.
So let's set the scene properly before we get to the robots. What exactly is this riddle? Because looking at the source material, the rules seem, well, frankly, a little unfair.
They're incredibly unfair if you're expecting a clear answer. So visualize the three paths: gold, marble, stone. And you have three knights making statements about where the grail is. But here's the catch. These knights are not the classic truth tellers or liars you find in logic puzzles. They're probabilistic.
Okay, hold on. Probabilistic. Break that down for us.
It means they mostly lie, but, sometimes they tell the truth. It's not black and white. We're given specific truth probabilities for each one. The knight guarding the gold path tells the truth only 9% of the time.
0.09. That is incredibly low. That's not a knight. That's a scam artist.
It gets worse. The marble knight tells the truth 5% of the time.
5%.
And the stone knight tells the truth only 3% of the time.
Wow. Okay, so basically they're all liars. Even the most honest guy in the group is lying 91% of the time.
Correct. And that's the crucial detail to remember. We are dealing with a world of near certain deception. Now, the statements they make are complex logic gates.
I have them here. Let's run through them slowly because
Yeah.
the specific wording matters for the logic later. The gold knight says the probability the gold path leads to the grail is 0.98. And then he adds this weird conditional. Also, if the stone path works, then the marble path works.
Keep that conditional in mind. It's stone, then marble. That's a logic dependency. It links the fate of two paths together.
Okay. Then the marble knight speaks up and says, neither the gold path nor the stone path leads to the grail.
Which implies the marble path is the winner by elimination. If it's not gold and not stone, it has to be marble.
Right. And finally, the stone knight says, if you take the gold path, you get the grail. If you take the marble path, you get nothing.
So we have three conflicting stories from three very unreliable narrators. It's a mess.
And this is where our two AIs diverge. Let's start with Deepseek. When Deepseek looks at this mess of low probabilities and conflicting statements, what is it actually seeing?
Deepseek approaches this like a Wall Street quantitative analyst. It doesn't look at the story or the narrative first, it looks at the numbers. Its methodology is built around Bayesian inference as its core engine.
We hear the term Bayesian inference thrown around constantly in tech circles, but in plain English, without the whiteboard, what is Deepseek actually doing with it here?
Think of Bayesian inference as a way of updating your beliefs as you get new data. You start with a prior, what you think is true before you see any evidence. In this case, Deepseek looks at those truth probabilities 0.09, 0.05, 0.03 and it treats them as the anchor.
Okay, so it sees the 0.09, the 9% truth rate of the gold knight, and just locks onto it.
Exactly. To Deepseek, that 9% chance isn't just mostly a lie, it is a signal amidst the noise. It's comparing 9% to 5% and 3%. Relatively speaking, the gold knight is 3 times more trustworthy than the stone knight.
I see. So while I'm looking at the Gold Knight thinking, this guy is a liar, Deepseek is thinking, he is the least dishonest person here. Therefore, his words carry the most weight.
That's it. Deepseek is optimizing for the best chance of truth. It treats the statements not just as sentences, but as variables to be weighted. It's crunching the numbers to calculate a posterior probability. That's the updated belief after running the math.
So it's literally plugging these statements into a formula.
Yes. It takes the statement gold is the grail and multiplies it by the weight of the gold knight's reliability. It does this for all the permutations.
And what does the calculator say?
The calculation comes back giving the gold path a probability of roughly 0.366 to 0.640, depending on exactly how you weigh the specifics. But the key is that it's significantly higher than the other 2 options.
So Deepseek looks at the math and says, the numbers point to gold.
Precisely. It effectively ignores the semantic paradoxes or the fact that this statement might be self-contradictory. It says, the gold knight is the most reliable source I have. I'm going to bet on him.
It's like a hedge fund algorithm buying a stock because the indicators are slightly less terrible than the rest of the market. It's not about truth in a philosophical sense. It's about statistical likelihood.
Calculated certainty. That's the Deepseek vibe. It's betting on the house odds.
Okay, now let's flip the coin. Google Gemini looks at the exact same nights, the exact same 9%, 5%, and 3%, but it doesn't go down the gold road.
No. Gemini acts as a logician, or maybe a logical strategist. Its approach is fundamentally different. It uses something called maximum likelihood estimation combined with logical negation.
Those sound like impressive buzzwords. Let's break them down. Start with maximum likelihood.
Remember how Deepseek saw the 9% truth rate as a signal?
Yeah, the nugget of gold in the mud.
Gemini looks at the mud. It sees the 91% lie rate as the base reality. It uses a heuristic, a mental shortcut that says, if the probability of lying is over 90%, we shouldn't try to find the truth in the statement. We should assume the statement is false.
That feels, I don't know, surprisingly human. If someone lies to me 91% of the time, I'm not going to parse their words for a hidden meaning. I'm just going to assume they're lying.
Exactly. Instead of weighing the small chance of truth, Gemini inverts the statements. It treats them as propositions that must be negated. It asks, if everyone is lying, what is the only scenario that makes sense?
So it plays detective, Sherlock Holmes style. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
That is literally the Gemini strategy. It starts testing hypotheses. It says, okay, let's assume the gold path is the right one.
Let's play that out. Hypothesis A, gold is true. Why does Gemini reject that?
Look at what the Stone Knight said. The Stone Knight said, if you take the gold path, you get the grail.
Okay, so if gold is the true path, the Stone Knight is telling the truth.
But remember the priors. The Stone Knight has a 97% probability of lying. Logic dictates he should be lying. If gold is the path, the Stone Knight, the biggest liar of them all, is accidentally telling the truth. That's a massive red flag for Gemini.
It's unlikely, sure, but is it impossible?
Well, Gemini digs deeper. If gold is the true path, it creates a contradiction with the other statements. Remember the gold knight's weird conditional. If stone, then marble.
Right.
If you assume gold is the winner and then you try to map out the truth tables for the other knights, you end up in a scenario where the marble path has to be both open and closed simultaneously to satisfy the logic.
A paradox.
Exactly. Gemini looks at that and says, logical consistency is broken. This map doesn't work. So it scraps the gold road. It's too messy.
So it moves to hypothesis B. The stone road is true.
Right. Now, let's test that. If the stone road is the grail, then the gold knight who said gold is the winner is lying. Does that fit our probabilities?
Yes, he lies 91% of the time, so that checks out.
If the stone road is the grail, the marble knight who said neither gold nor stone is also lying. Does that fit?
Yes, he lies 95% of the time, so that checks out too.
And the stone knight. He said, if gold, then grail. If stone is the winner, his statement implies gold is the answer, which is false. So he's also lying. Gemini runs a consistency check. It finds that the all liars scenario where everyone is deceiving you is the only one that holds together structurally.
So the math might be lower on the Stone Knight's truthfulness, but the logic is cleaner.
It trusts the structural integrity of the lie scenario, the conclusion. The gold road is a mathematical trap. The marble road is a distraction. You must take the stone road.
This is wild. We have Deepseek saying, trust the highest probability number, which is gold, and Gemini saying, trust the most consistent story. which leads to stone.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Both models actually cited the same tool in their reasoning. They both talked about Bayesian inference.
Wait, really? But they used it to do opposite things. How does that work?
That is the divergence point. This is the key takeaway for anyone trying to understand AI reasoning. Deepseek used Bayes as an engine. It crunched the numbers directly. It asked which number is highest.
Pure quantitative calculation. It's looking for a high score.
Yes. But Gemini used Bayes as a safety net, or our verification tool. It did the logic first, the detective work, the elimination of paradoxes, and then it used Bayesian concepts to weight check the result. Gemini essentially argued, even under Bayesian inference, if we look at the intersection of three high probability lies, it points to the stone road.
So Deepseek prioritized probabilistic weight, the precision weighing of rare events, and Gemini prioritized logical consistency untangling semantic contradictions.
Correct. Same data, same rules, different maps.
It really highlights how the definition of truth changes depending on what you value. Deepseek sees truth as a statistical likelihood. It's looking for the 9% solution. Gemini sees truth as a non-contradictory state.
And think about the visual metaphor here. Deepseek maximized the math of the truth. It tried to find that tiny 9% nugget of gold. Gemini maximized the logic of the lie. It embraced the fact that deception was the norm and navigated through the negative space.
That's a great way to put it. It's like Deepseek is trying to hear the whisper in the noisy room, and Gemini is reading the lips of everyone screaming to figure out what they aren't saying.
That is a perfect analogy. And it shows that AI isn't a monolith. We tend to think of the algorithm as this singular thing, but the algorithm defines the reality based on what it's incentivized to prioritize.
So let's zoom out a bit. We're Galahad. We have these two robot advisors. One says gold, one says stone. What does this tell us about the current state of AI?
It tells us that there isn't necessarily a single correct answer to a riddle like this when the parameters are this fuzzy. The answer depends entirely on the cognitive style of the model.
Deepseek acts like a quant trader. It sees a signal, it follows the signal. Gemini acts like a lawyer or a philosopher. It looks for the argument that holds up in court.
And this has huge implications for how we use these tools in the real world. Think about it. If you're doing financial forecasting, high-frequency trading, or maybe weather prediction,
You probably want the Deepseek approach. You want to find that subtle signal in the noise. You don't care if the story makes sense. You care if the numbers line up. If there's a 9% chance of a hurricane, you prepare for a hurricane.
exactly, you don't ignore it because most days are sunny.
Yeah.
You act on the signal. But flip it. If you are doing legal analysis or writing code or debugging software,
Logic breaks if there is a contradiction. A piece of code can't be 36% correct. It either works or it doesn't. If I write a contract, it can't contradict itself.
right, in those fields, you want the Gemini approach. You need internal consistency. You need the logical truth, not the calculated certainty. If you use the Deepseek method for coding, you might get a program that runs 9% of the time, which is useless.
It really makes you wonder about the questions we ask AI every day.
Hmm.
We assume we're getting the answer, but we're really getting an answer based on a specific cognitive bias.
We're getting a perspective. Deepseek is the optimist looking for the truth. Gemini is the cynic, assuming the lie.
That is profound. The cynic and the optimist. I feel like I know people who fit those descriptions perfectly.
Both are valid strategies. Both use high-level reasoning. But they lead you to different destinations. And in a high-stakes scenario, that difference could be everything.
So we have to wrap this up, but I want to leave our listeners with something to chew on.
The final provocation.
If you were Galahad, standing at that fork in the road, night is falling, the forest is creepy, and you have these two super intelligent entities pointing in opposite directions, would you follow the path of the mathematician who calculated the odds and says gold has the best stats? Or would you follow the path of the logician who unraveled the lie and says stone is the only thing that makes sense?
It's the ultimate test of your own cognitive bias. Do you trust the numbers, or do you trust the narrative?
I think I'd be paralyzed. I'd probably just set up camp and wait for morning.
The analysis paralysis pass. The fourth option. Probably the safest bet.
Exactly. But for everyone listening, think about which map you would follow. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one.